Hello, my name is Megan McCarthy, and welcome to my Reteach project on new and diverse family forms. For this project, I've decided to create a piece of art to represent my viewpoint on divorce and how it affects new family structures and the diversification of family forms. But before we discuss this piece of art, I would like to begin by talking about families. Our textbook defines families as groups of related people that are connected either by biology, so this could be the people that you are biologically related to, the people that you share your blood with. You could be tied emotionally, which means this is the family that you personally belong to, that you truly feel in your heart that you belong to, or by the legal system. So, an adopted family, your legal guardians, any step parents that you might be legally tied to. But family is such a large system and has grown to contain many different categories. Two examples of families are personal families and the legal family. But being a part of a family and how you're knowing you're a part of one can be tough. The sense of belonging sometimes isn't always there, and not all families get along, and most families have their problems. But our textbook does state that being a part of a family and truly knowing whether you belong to one is having that sense of commitment to care or of care to one another. In order to shed light on the difference between personal families and the legal family, I would like to share my family with you. So we all come from somewhere or someone or something. I have a biological family and a legal family, but I'm not truly close with all members of this definition of family. This is a picture of me and my mom, and my mom is the one who has raised me for the last half of my life, and she's the one who I feel closest to, as well as my grandparents. I have a very different personality type than most people in my biological and legal family, which makes it difficult to understand one another, and these circumstances have caused us to grow apart, which led to the adoption of my personal family. This is something that I feel is a true blessing in my life, and this was given to me by my best friend, who I have known for the last 11 years of my life. I now work for her mom as a nanny for her three younger half brothers and a new stepsister for her. This is the family that has brought me into their home and has made me feel I am one of their own and they are one of mine. I feel a true sense of this commitment to care for them, and I feel they have the same for me. Families in the modern day have changed so much, though, and we have become more diverse. The most common form of family reached its peak in the 1950s, and it was known as the nuclear family. This consisted of two parents and their biological children sharing a roof. Now, in our modern day, nuclear families are found in less than half of all American homes. There are many factors that contribute to the rise and diversification of families, such as perspectives on marriages, rates of divorce, and diversification of gender roles in households and the workplace. So this presentation is going to shed some light on these contributing factors. But for now, let us change lights and talk about the art form that brings us to this presentation today. This is a backpack. It's two backpacks, in fact. It might not be the most complex art form. It is made out of construction paper, glue, and I used scissors. But this is called the in-between bag, and this represents new diverse forms of family to me, and it has a rather personal tie to me. So, the in-between bag is my personal definition, a bag that transports the goods and essentials of a child's belongings between their two parents' homes when when their parents are separated, split, or divorced. The idea for this project comes from my own personal experiences. My parents are divorced and have been for most of my life. My father remarried pretty early after the divorce, and my mom still remains a single parent to this day. Due to a strange custody schedule, though, I did heavily rely on an in-between bag every day to transport the things that I needed at each household. These items in this bag were really the only form of stability that I and the children that I nanny for have between each household. It's the one thing or things that remain the same besides the siblings that go with them. Um, but as I said, now I am a nanny to four children who do live in separate households, and it is my job on alternating Mondays to pick up these bags. There's not a lot of research out there on custody schedules and transferring households and the effects that it have on children, but I would be interested to see in the development of this research, which leads us into divorce. Divorce plays a huge role in the change of family styles. So it can begin with separation. This is when spouses separate or parents separate without getting legal matters involved. Divorce is when we get legal matters involved. It's the true legal dissolution of marriage. And in the United States, this is done at the state level, not at the federal level. The rates of divorce have increased in the 20th century as women began joining the workforce and as common beliefs about divorces have changed. Now, women joining the workforce is not the sole contributing factor to divorce, the rate of change in divorce, but it is something that did change. The social values behind divorce changed as one spouse could divorce another without worry or fear that it would be seen as a failure. This is something that we can dive in a little deeper with seeing the different rates of divorces. And these are three different ways to study trends or patterns in divorce. The graph shown to the right is the crude divorce rate between 1860 and 2021, which shows how common divorce is in the whole country. Crude divorce rate can be most useful in understanding long-term trends for estimating the numbers of divorces per person. So according to our textbook, there's about 2.8 divorces for every 1,000 people in the country. As you can see, it's around the 20th century here when you see the spikes in divorce. And over here, where I'm circling, shows the divorce revolution, which was between 1960 and 1980, when there was a dramatic increase in divorce. People associate this with the liberalization of family law. This is when people could get a divorce without the accusation of it being wrong or having this negative connotation to it. Um, you didn't have to worry about condemnation from the church or from your fellow peers. We also have the refined divorce rate, which tells us how common divorce is among married couples. This is really useful in understanding the demographic trends in divorce. It's most useful for estimating divorce within the population of people that could be considered quote unquote at risk of getting divorced. So our textbook says that 1.3% divorces happen for every 1,000 married couples in the country. And lastly, we have the divorce marriage ratio, which compares the frequency of divorces to that of new marriages. Um, so this is most useful in comparing total amount of divorces with the total amount of marriages. Um, so there it says that there are about 44% as many divorces as there are for marriages. There are many contributing factors that impact the diversification of families today. Marriage in early adulthood is seen to be less common. In fact, it's more common in this modern day to cohabitate with your partner before marriage, if marriage were to even occur at all. Parents are raising children with lack of marriage or lack of that legal presence there. We're seeing more long-term couples rather than marriage partnerships. Interracial marriages are more common and widely accepted as well as same-sex and same-gender marriage has become more widely accepted in social terms and legal terms, introducing a whole new style of family that has yet to have been studied broadly. This is another personal tie for me and where my personal family comes into play. The parents that I nanny for, we are going to call them Susan and Bonnie. They are a remarried lesbian couple, raising triplets from Susan's previous partnerships to Joanna. And Susan, which is the mother of my closest friend, was previously married before that partnership to a man, which is where my best friend and her sisters come from. Then Susan had her partnership with Joanne, and that's where I get the triplets from. And then Susan is now married to a new woman who has a daughter of her own, and that's where all the children that I nanny come from. It's a bit complicated. It has its own family tree branches, but it leads me into this last topic that I'd like to talk about, which is blended families. So we know from learning that blended families are formed when individuals bring together children from their previous relationships, either by marriage or committed relationships. So my dad is remarried to a woman who has a child from a previous partnership, and my dad had his two children from his previous marriage. That brings us to nearly 34% of new marriages involve at least one spouse who is remarried or has been previously married. I found a reading from a census in 2009 that said 16% of families are blended. This isn't a true accurate number that we can go off of anymore because it is a bit out of date. But according to this chart from 2022, found in our textbook, nearly 14.4% of children today are living in blended families. And this isn't as high of a number as I would have thought, but this is such a new, growing, and more widely accepted form of family with nearly 1,300 new step families growing each day. The diversification of family has given many the opportunity to have a true family outside of the parameters traditional biological families are given or defined. So I hope to see more research done into these new forms of families as time goes on, and I hope that you gained something from my presentation today. And maybe we can all take a moment and stop and ask ourselves, what does family mean to me? What ways do I continue to grow my family? And what does the future of families look like to me? Thank you for joining me today, and good luck to all of your future endeavors on this academic path that we are all on. Thank you for joining me.